Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. Alrighty, so we're here to talk about the Orlando Magic. That's what we're doing, breaking down the Orlando Magic roster as best I can, give you what I know about the team. And, you know, I've done a little homework on this team. I'm not going to say I've followed them at all. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a fan or anything like that. I'm just a guy who watches basketball as best I can from afar. I play a lot of fantasy basketball particularly, so I'm kind of familiar with these guys in that way. And, you know, just one person's perspective. So that's what I'm here to give you. Now, the first thing I want to say is I'm not going to talk about the players that are necessarily most important in a certain type of order or anything like that, because I have something I got to make right. I said RJ Hampton was with the Denver Nuggets and did a whole spiel about him on that video because it was listed that he was on that team on both Google and on the team site. So I just assumed that was correct information, but it was not. He actually plays for the Orlando Magic and played with the Orlando Magic for half of the season last year. So what I initially thought was just opposite. He was traded from Orlando, from the Nuggets to Orlando. And so just want to come back here and make that right. If you see that video, yeah, you'll understand I made the mistake. So RJ Hampton is on this team. Very good young player, drafted last year at the end of the first round, more or less, and he has outperformed that draft position, in my opinion. He's outperformed that a lot. Granted, he was able to, like a lot of players on this team, take advantage of the fact that they had depleted their roster by trading away my guy, what's his name, went to Chicago, Vucevic, and ultimately just left themselves with only a few players that they had from previous eras. So this let a guy like RJ Hampton get that opportunity, and he ran with it. Scored the ball very well for this team. Showed that, in my opinion, he has all-star upside. You definitely want to keep an eye on RJ Hampton because as we continue to go forward, I think he's going to continue to outplay whatever role they give him, albeit a probably limited one because of how many guards they have on this roster at this time. But I think he will be one of the guards that gets some minutes and gets a chance to be featured. Plus, I think he can play some three in some certain lineups as well. So I think they'll find ways to get him on the floor. He's too talented not to. So, yeah, he's going to be the first name we mention because of the mistake. The second name I have to mention here, now I got to jump right on into it. They got a guy by the name of Jalen Suggs in the draft this year. This dude is a monster. Simply what I would consider the type of player that they would want to bring in to try to start the process of truly building something real. They have always had a propensity to kind of prioritize shot blocking that really stood out to me about this team, and I've mentioned it several times on this channel. They just tend to do a great job of making sure that they have players with length, players that can play defense, and they've really had that as their focal point for building their team. And bringing in Jalen Suggs continues on that path. He's a defensive nightmare, and he's somebody who has a football background, so you know he can be physical when necessary. And he's also very, very, very intelligent in how he picks apart defensive players, jumps in passing lanes, uses his body to move laterally and things of that nature. He's fast in that way. And he's just ultimately a nightmare to deal with, a very, very tenacious and gifted defensive player. On the offensive end, he can do everything. He can score 3 levels. He's a great facilitator. He has very good handles. He drives at the basket and finishes well. Basically, what I'm describing to you is the prospect of the perfect player, quite honestly. He doesn't really have too many weaknesses as it pertains to his game. He's going to continue to polish his game as it pertains to coming in and just learning his skills. He's going to continue to get better and get sharper, learn the game, put on more weight and things of that nature. But as far as I can tell, in looking at scouting videos, it wasn't too much to say other than that this dude doesn't have too much wrong with him at all. Nothing really at all. You're just picking up a guy that pretty much should fit in any system and should be able to play any way. What I saw was a combination of a lot of different players. But the most important thing I saw about him was not in comparison to others, but more so what stood out about him was what he did unique to himself, which was play defense ferociously and just score. Just dynamite in the open court, dynamite in the half court setting, doing all types of different things. I think if he were as tall as Cade Cunningham, he probably would have been 1-2 with Cade Cunningham. Like that's really what it comes down to. He's not as tall, not as long, but skills wise, he's a monster. So at this point, it's just about, as I said, his conditioning and how well this team puts him in a position to do the things that he's ultimately going to do very well anyway. And that's kill on both sides of the floor. It reminds me of Drew Holiday a little bit, a little Jason Kidd in there. Yeah, but he's a little more athletic than those guys too. So take that for what it's worth. So yeah, that's Jalen Suggs. I think he'll basically be the future of this team. He is the guy that you would expect to get the biggest amount of attention in terms of putting the ball in his hands and being prioritized over the other guards. I just think that the way things are going right now, he's basically the face of the franchise, in my opinion. So next name up, we have Cole Anthony. And Cole Anthony is a player who came along really strong last year, son of Greg Anthony, a player who played for the Portland Trail Blazers, New York Knicks, and of course has made a name for himself with ESPN as well. His son, I think, has a lot of talent, man. This dude can do pretty much everything. He's another one of those super talented guards that you're going to find a lot of on this roster. Kind of had a breakout, ran into a little bit of an injury last year, kind of set him back just a bit, but he was able to come back and finish the season strong, if I'm not mistaken. But started off really strong and just continued a fantastic rookie season. Cole Anthony did. So you got to appreciate the young fella stepping into a situation where, quite honestly, it wasn't a whole lot of certainty with the roster, and they weren't expecting to have a lot of wins. And he really took leadership and took a leadership role when the team was depleted, and kind of made sure that his name was mentioned amongst the best rookies of the year. So Cole Anthony, man, he stepped out and stepped in big and did what he had to do. I would imagine he's going to be their starting shooting guard or point guard. I don't know if they're going to start Jalen right away, although I think they will. But Jalen Suggs will be available, and he's probably going to be ready to play. But I don't think he will be affecting Cole Anthony's minutes. It's just a matter of which will play what position, in my opinion. But we'll see. Coaches do whatever they choose, so this can go a lot of different ways. Markelle Fultz is the next name I'm going to mention, and the reason why I want to mention Markelle early is because I really, really like this player, and I think he is probably someone that they're going to have to consider moving. They're going to have to consider it. Why? Because he's too good to be in this position. The situation he's in at this point is probably backup point guard, backup shooting guard combination, and what he showed us last year before getting hurt was that he's going to be as good as advertised, or maybe close to it. The problem is the knee. The knee is the issue. He just had a very bad knee injury, so he's going to have to recover from that. We also know how his development went with the shoulder situation that was misdiagnosed and misunderstood, and then he had some other things also to try to work through. Seems as if he's worked those things out. He's got a new spot in Orlando. They seem to have believed in him enough to give him a lot of playing time last year, and he just went down with an injury. But he showed us that he could play. This is somebody we knew could play. He was the first pick in the draft, and just had a horrible start to his career in terms of his development and, just in general, just some other stuff that just wouldn't allow him to kind of just have a smooth, normal start to his career. But recovering from injury right now, as I always say about young players, injuries can do one of two things. They can either give you the habits necessary to make you a durable player in this league, or they can start a process of a reoccurring theme where you continue to be injured. Unfortunately, this is his second major injury, and I'm wondering if this is going to be the process of him just being an injury-prone player. Having two guards or more, three guards, ahead of him on this roster does not help with that, as it pertains to him not getting lost in this league. So I'm hopeful he can find himself a situation that could work for him. But I don't think it's in Orlando, to be completely honest with you. I do not after they drafted now Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony on top of him. So it is what it is. RJ Hampton, of course, as well. So they have a log jam, and they're going to have to do something about it at some point. Just like Sacramento, just like several other teams, just like Charlotte had the problem with that last year, et cetera, Yeah, Orlando unfortunately has that issue now. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see which ones they pick. I know which ones they should, and Markel's probably going to be traded. So next name I want to mention is Chuma Okeke. Chuma Okeke was a guy they drafted last year with the 16th pick, and he played great too. Of course, he was one of the guys who, once they made the Vucevic trade, obviously got all of his opportunities in the world. At that point, they didn't have anybody on the roster who could really do, what it is that they needed him to do for them. So at that point, they called his number, gave him 30 minutes a game, and he showed why he was picked 16th. And that's just what it is, Chuma Okeke was lucky because he was drafted into a situation that allowed him an opportunity to not have to worry at all about playing time, not have to worry about making mistakes, not have to worry about too many bright lights on him while he developed in his rookie year. That is a very, very unique circumstance that I think many players would love to have had. So he did take advantage of that opportunity, and I think most young players who were given an opportunity like that would take advantage of an opportunity like that. So that's what happened. He showed that he can be a starting power forward in this league who can score with the best of them. I wrote down here that he was shot 40% from the field. Did some good things out there. He hasn't quite rounded into form in terms of showing that he's an all-around player just yet in the numbers. But he's consistent enough to where if you put him on the floor, he's going to score, and he's going to score efficiently. That is super, super exciting for this to have only been his rookie season and for him to be the 16th pick, and you can call on him like that. They got one. They got them one. So look out for Chuma Okeke. I hope I'm not ruining his name, but look out for that kid. He's going to be a scorer. I haven't watched a whole lot of him. I just know of him from fantasy basketball, blah, blah, blah. You know the spiel. And I owned him for quite a bit near the end of last season. Very, very helpful for all of the teams that I had him on. So for what that's worth, here we go. Next name, Bamba. A center that I've always thought Orlando should give the keys to. I thought they should trade Vucevic long before they did because they needed to give this kid the opportunity that they drafted him to give them. The good thing was, though, they had Vucevic because Mo wasn't ready. Mo needed to put on a lot of weight. Mo needed to get into shape. Mo needed to have a fire lit under him. It just didn't look like his career was starting off the way you wanted to see it, but at the same time, in a natural way because he's a rookie and rookies don't usually start strong. But he started to develop slowly but surely. He's starting to come along, and his numbers are getting better and better every year. The thing about Mo Bamba is you have to understand is he has the longest wingspan ever recorded in NBA Combine history. The longest. No one has ever had longer arms than that. So at this point, when you're considering him, you're considering what that dynamic can bring to any team long term as he develops. So I felt like he should have been prioritized, even though Vucevic is an all-star every year. You want to prioritize those type of metrics, especially since you're the type of team that value shot blocking and length to the degree that you do. I just felt it didn't make as much sense to have a guy like Vucevic, who doesn't necessarily fit that mold, is just super talented, on file at that price. So I think they did themselves some favors in that regard, freeing things up for Mo Bamba. And he will have opportunities, except for one issue. Wendell Carter Jr., the next name we're going to mention. Another young center who's really, really good, who needs his opportunities. Now, Chicago had some ups and downs with Wendell. The weird thing about Wendell Carter was his numbers were really, really good. Like, if you owned him in fantasy, his numbers were really good. But when you listen to fans talk about him, when you watch highlights, it didn't really always translate to the eye test, so to speak. So it was tough, for Chicago to watch him develop. But he was always a very, very productive center. He was always somebody that you knew could start in this league. And he came to Orlando and continued the process of being a good player for them. So he's in the way of Mo Bamba, kind of in a way, because he is just in that same, age length, kind of that same upside, for different reasons. But you understand that both of these players are good and should be playing. So they have two young centers, and that's a good thing in some ways for their team as a whole, because both of those guys are spry. They're going to be battling each other. They got something to prove, and nobody really knows of them because they're in these situations. So I think a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. believes of himself to be somebody who can make an all-star team someday. And I think the numbers tell us that we should be optimistic that that's possible as well. So, as far as I'm concerned, Wendell Carter Jr.'s upside is pretty good, and they have a good player there. They're gonna have him available to them if they need to trade him. I think he'll have some value as well, and that's the beauty of this roster right now. They got cap space and assets and depth, and I don't think a lot of people see Orlando coming in that regard. They really are better than even I thought. So those are their centers. And moving on, we're going to talk about the Wagners. The Wagners, they picked up both of the Wagner bros, and they're both going to have roles on this team. Best believe it. I think this could potentially be one of those situations like Giannis, or like LaMelo, where they value the player that they're picking up so much that they just want to make him happy, so they bring his brother in too. I think that's what's going on here. Franz Wagner was a player that they drafted early in the draft this year, so they have great hopes for who he can turn out to be. He's an active defender, bro. I'm telling you, this guy, he defends. He's the type of dude that you do not want to be faced with on a double team with somebody else. Like a Jonathan Isaac, of whom we'll be mentioning, that double team is going to be magical. No pun intended at all. They are going to create problems. Hear me good. And that's what stands out about Franz Wagner. Arm length, height, and the ability to make plays for others as well as score the ball for himself. He's a very, very talented prospect who will need to develop. I'm not sure outside of that. But I do know for a fact that they brought his brother in. I know a little more about Mo, because Mo was somebody that the Lakers drafted several years back, was one of the players that I considered one of our Laker kids. We liked Mo a lot, man. He didn't play a whole lot, but he did a lot of good things for us. The thing that stood out about Mo was he was very aggressive. You couldn't tell him that he wasn't fast. You couldn't tell him that he wasn't rebounding like Dennis Rodman. He was a guy that played with a lot of confidence and threw his body around as necessary. If I recall, he was a competent shooter. I wouldn't call him somebody that you want spacing the floor necessarily. But, he was good from the line. He was still so very early in his stages. That's another thing. We had him as a rookie. He was a raw prospect. So what I remember from Mo Wagner in limited minutes probably isn't nothing like the player that he's become over time with the Washington Wizards and the Boston Celtics, and now with the Orlando Magic. But what I do know is he's going to be a part of a team where there will be minutes available to him at that power forward position. They'll have their options, but that's one of the positions that they're not necessarily log jammed. So they can use Mo Wagner in some positions in their bench. And I think because his bro Franz is going to have a big role in this team, I think it stands to reason that he'll help Franz along and help him, just get used to what's going to be to come in the NBA. With them together, I like what they'll have in that locker room with that dynamic. Having brothers there, that's a good thing. And I also like the idea that all these players are very young. I don't really see too many vets on the team. Some would say maybe they could use some veteran leadership, actually. But they have a few guys. So we'll get to them. But yeah, that's Franz and Mo Wagner, the Wagner boys. Next up, Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is a very, very good scorer. There was once one random game where he went off for like 50 points. Like, he's that kind of guy. Very lethal scorer. He's become more consistent scoring the ball. He's not really doing a whole lot else for you, but you don't expect him to. You're not bringing him in to do anything else. Catch and shoot, electrify the crowd with unbelievable jumps and dunks and all kinds of different things that he can do athletically, because he has that in his arsenal for sure. But also be active on the defensive end. So Terrence Ross has really become a serviceable role player in this league with starters ability and big scoring ability. So keep an eye on Terrence Ross, one of the vets on this team. Most people thought he was going to be traded, and he was like basically the last one left. Him and Chuma and Cole Anthony were just kind of running around out there for Orlando. I think he's looking at this situation. He's probably comfortable, but a winning situation would probably be appealing to him. I could totally see them trading him to a contender at some point if they don't turn into one themselves. So keep an eye on that. Let's see. Jonathan Isaac. Got to talk about Jonathan Isaac. Of course, Jonathan Isaac went down with a very bad knee injury. Kind of left him out of the league for almost a year now, maybe a little longer than that. But he's healthy now. and he's going to be coming in looking to pick up where he left off, which is basically a high upside defensive player with supreme length. He was another one of those players that come to mind when I consider them being consistent in valuing length in defense and shot blocking. He's a very long player, came in around the same time Brandon Ingram did. Didn't have the kind of upside that Brandon did, but he was a more gifted defensive player, and he's been able to show that in this league. What he's also done is turned himself into a pretty solid offensive player too. He's learned how to get his scoring going, which was why it was so devastating to see him go down, because he had become one of the more active players in basketball, really. Just a jack of all trades, a guy who's smart in getting the ball to other people, does good things for you in a multitude of ways. Not somebody you want shooting the three too much, but again, he's been working on his game. So that knee injury set him back tremendously. But I think he was beginning to start to have the type of habits and mechanics, natural muscle memory type of stuff in terms of his jump shot, in terms of some of his moves, to where he could pick up where he left off. It's not so much about developing those skills. It's more so about reestablishing them. So with that being said, I like how they've developed him over the years. I think they did a very good job with Jonathan Isaac. And if not for injuries, we'd be talking about him very differently going into this season. So, yeah, I still think it all depends on how he recovers from the injury and, of course, not having the injury repeat itself. When he establishes value again, he's going to change the tide for this entire team. That's what I think. He makes them different when he's healthy. And I think a lot of people are going to be very pleased to see him coupled with a newfound confidence in Mo Bamba in year 4. That length is going to be different than they remember it being, because Mo's going to be more involved. So I'm very, very intrigued by what they got going on here defensively, and particularly with their center position, because they have another center here in Robin Lopez that I had written down and forgotten he was here. So yeah, that Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, Robin Lopez rotation is not as pretty as I thought it was, now that I remember Robin at the bottom of this dang thing. But I'll tell you this, Robin is a player who's probably going to get bought out. He ain't going to be here much longer. He always seems to find himself in situations with teams like this, though. I don't know why he doesn't kind of press the issue a little bit to try to get out of these situations. I think he could, but he doesn't. You would think he would be a guy that ends up getting bought out and signs with the Nets or something, but not him. No, he usually sticks with the team that he's at, and he usually does a very good job with it. Fantastic free throw shooter. That's the first thing that steps out for me about Robin Lopez. He's extraordinarily good from the line as a center. He's also somebody who rebounds the ball extremely well and makes his money on the defensive end as well. So he continues the theme of them prioritizing defense. They are very consistent about that and have been for many years. Eventually, it is going to pay off. Next name I see here is Michael Carter Williams, MC Dub. MC Dub, of course, won Rookie of the Year back in, I don't know, it was probably like 7 years ago. I'm not certain. But he had a hell of a rookie season, did some of everything. He was never a shooter, but he was a guy who, with his athleticism and basketball IQ, could literally do everything. He would have lines where he would have 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, like that kind of thing. He was just really, really different in his rookie season. Had a strange type of knee injury, some type of weird infection of some sort. It was a different type of injury, and it set him back quite a bit. Skin irritation injury or something. I don't know. It was very different. But he recovered from that, then ended up having knee issues. So injuries have kind of plagued this guy's career, man. That's really what it comes down to. Started off super strong, but was never able to really get the opportunities to couple with his body doing what it needed to do to keep him sustained out here. So he's been good enough to keep in the league. He's had some good tenures with different teams. I think he had a good run with the Rockets one year. Had some good runs in different places. So now he's going to be back with Orlando after being with them last year, I believe, and having a really good season with them last year. So he's having a good momentum going into his career going forward. I think it's good momentum, I guess, is what I'm trying to convey. In other words, yeah, I've had my injuries, had my past issues, had the disappointment of not bouncing back, whatever. But this was a good off season. Last year I was healthy. So these are the type of things where I always reference where guys have these injuries, as I said, and then start having the habits of working out to make themselves durable. I think Michael Carter Williams could potentially be on that path. And if that's the case, all he needs to do is build his value up and then continue to work on his game and take whatever the game gives him. Because at this point, he's not going to be able to get some of those jobs that'll make him a star or whatever. But things do happen. And sometimes, all you got to do is be ready. And when they call your number, that's all it takes. And for a player at this age, you can still write your story. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a done deal that you're just this. All you need is for a few things to fall into place and for you to be ready when they do. Maybe it happens, maybe it don't. But I always encourage players to stay ready because of it. So I've seen it before. It don't happen often, but sometimes guys will be quote-unquote scrubs or something like that, and then that guy gets hurt. And then the guy that you're playing behind, he gets to step up, and he doesn't perform. Now they're calling your name. You come in, have a good game, come in, have another good game, come in, have another good game, get yourself a 1-year contract with somebody next year. They give you a backup role, you do pretty good. Next thing you know, you're getting offered $60 million. It's happened before. So I just think that guys like Michael Carter Williams or anybody in his lane, just be patient, keep working on your game, get in the best possible shape, take the opportunities you get, be smart with every possession, and maybe good things can happen if you stay ready. So that's what I'll say about that. And the rest of the roster, as usual, I always write down names, but I'm not familiar with all these guys, so I'll just name them off to you. And if I can get the page flipped, I will make it happen. All right, so this is the roster that they have on the back, and of course it's subject to change at any minute. But they have Ignas Brazdelikis. Don't think I'm saying it correctly. I know he played for the New York Knicks for a little bit. He's now with the Orlando Magic. Sindarius Thornwell. He's a guy who often plays very well when I see him play, man. He's usually playing in meaningless basketball, to be honest with you. Those are the opportunities given to him a lot of times. But when he's out there, he's a scorer. He gets out there and gets buckets, man. That's what I've seen from Sindarius Thornwell, a guy who can shoot the three, a guy who can get in there and mix it up in the paint. Just a nice guard, young guard at that. So another guy looking for an opportunity. Dante Hall, not familiar with that gentleman. Devin Kennedy, I've heard the name. I think he was drafted this year, but I'm not 100% sure, so don't trust that. Chasen Randall's a guy they have here, and of course Robert Franks as well. I believe those are either rookies or guys I've only had for a couple minutes. I didn't do my due diligence. I'm sorry. I don't know if they'll be in the rotation. It's not smart to assume guys on the back of the bench won't find themselves in the rotation, so don't think that I think that. I don't. I just didn't do my homework. So that is what it is. The Orlando Magic are a good team with defense and depth at their disposal. They're a little overloaded at their point guard position, obviously a little overloaded at their center position, depending on how you want to look at Robin Lopez at this stage in his career. But all in all, it's up for grabs. That's the good thing. Nobody's won any position on this team, with the exception of what I would believe is Jalen Suggs for whatever position best fits him when they figure that out. I'd imagine it'll end up being shooting guard to help with everything that comes with the size of the players on the team. I think he's a little bigger than Anthony, so I think they'll probably start Anthony at the point, even though he'll probably do most of the playmaking in the end. I think both of those guys are very comfortable playmaking. They're both good at it, so we'll figure it out. They're going to be monsters off one another, and if they develop properly, look out. That's one of the best backcourts in basketball. Early. I'm calling it early. But a lot of things have to fall into place in order for that to happen. But the good thing is they have all the defensive help in the world. Isaac, Bamba, all these guys, Wendell, they're going to help. They're going to help with everything they need, and they got guys like Chuma who can score the ball. I like this team. I like them. I don't know that they can make the playoffs, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't know that they can't. They are a good enough team to where without Jalen Suggs, before the injury, they were making the playoffs. And I'm not saying as in they made it once. No, this is a team, if you go back and look, they've been making the playoffs. They didn't make it last year, if I'm not mistaken, but the previous years, they've been making it. And one of the reasons why is because they prioritize defense. So look out for them. They are not a team to just poo-poo at. They got a lot of talent here. They can make some moves to get better too. If they want to get in play for somebody, I think they have the roster capability and the cap capability to do so. I didn't do my homework on that though. But from where I'm sitting, they saved themselves some money when they got rid of Vucevic. So what can I say, man? what can I say? This roster's better than I thought it was. My name is BDF44. I thank y'all for being patient with me. Yeah, Orlando Magic, look out. It's going to be a good year. BDF44. Peace.